Welcome to DIY Volts. I'm Seth. In the near future, I'm going to be installing solar into a small RV camper, and I wanted to go ahead and learn my equipment before doing that install. Today, I'm going to be taking a look at the solar equipment lineup from Redodo. I've got a 12 volt, 100 amp lithium iron phosphate battery. I've got a 2000 watt inverter, and then lastly over here I have got the 40 amp charge controller. So let's go ahead and take a look at all three of these components and then hook some solar up to it and a load to the inverter and see what kind of output we have. I'm going to start off by taking a look at the battery. This is a 12.8 volt, 100 amp hour, 1280 watt hour lithium iron phosphate battery. So just taking a tour around it here, you can see the Redodo logo right there, blank on this side. The back just has that number, the 1280 watt hour. And if you go to the top up here, it does have a cloth carrying handle, and then of course your positive and negative terminals there. So the battery is lightweight. You can actually pick it up pretty easy with one hand there. And if we move over to the included documentation, and it also has the posts there for connecting your cables to. Now, one nice thing about this particular battery is it is auto heating, which means it will take the initial solar that comes to the battery to heat up the battery before it begins to charge. That's going to make this battery very good for being in an RV camper where it may be cold weather and you want to be able to charge it when it's cold out. So the charging voltage, 14.4 volts, the operating voltage, 12.8, and as far as the heating function, required minimum charge current is 15 amps for that. So the temperature range here is -20 to 50 C, which is -4 to 122 degrees. That's for charging. So that is fantastic to be able to charge down to -4 degrees. And the approximate heating time is between 30 and 60 minutes to go at 14 degrees. Up next, we have the Redodo 2000 watt Pure Sine Wave Inverter, designed for 12 volts DC. So let's move over to the side here. It has a very basic connection, as you can see, for your positive and negative terminals, and also has some cooling fans there. The mounting is just these notches right here, which makes it pretty easy to mount. If you move over to this side, you can see it has a small display screen right there, has a power button, and then two outlets out. So essentially it is a very basic and easy to use inverter, and not a lot of thrills or frills, but should be all we need for this RV camper. It does have a product manual, which will give you some really basic information on this unit. And then it also has a couple of cables for the connection to battery. Now it looks like these are 4 different cables in one, and that will allow this to use the amount of amps that it needs to make that 2000 watts. And the last component here is the Redodo 40 amp 12 volt or 24 volt MPPT solar charge controller. This box will essentially take solar power in, and then it will charge the battery over here. And you can also attach a load right there, which I probably won't be doing. It does come with a remote temperature sensor. Because our battery is self-heating, we shouldn't have to worry about that right there. So we'll get into the display here in a bit, but basically you got your buttons, a display. On the back it has a heat sink to dissipate that heat, temperature sensor, PV input, battery, load, and you got an RS485 if you need to communicate with a battery. Now that we've taken a close-up look of each of these components, it's time to get them installed together for a test. Now, whenever I actually put these in the RV camper, I will have breakers between components, but for now, we're just going to be testing this out to make sure everything works proper. So these cables here were not included, but I'm going to use these to go from the charge controller to the battery, and that will, I think it's probably a 6 or 7 gauge, and should be sufficient for the amount of power we're going to have. This cable, of course, was included, and that's going to go from the inverter to the battery as well. So I believe what I'm going to do is have this connect first to the battery, and then this will be on top of that into the charge controller. Okay, let's go ahead and get this system put together. I'm going to remove these protective covers from the positive and negative terminals on the inverter. And let's go ahead and get the two cables connected here. So first of all, I'm going to get the negative cable installed. Like I mentioned earlier, this is simply just a test of the components. I will do a proper job of the install whenever we put this into the RV camper. So for now, I'm just going to grab some pliers and just tighten this down a little bit. I'm going to use a screwdriver to drop down these screw terminals in here. I want to make sure that I have battery negative over here on this side, and then battery positive on the other side. I'm going to take one of these screw terminals here and put it through the charge controller, and then I'm going to put it through the inverter, and then get those together and screwed into this terminal. Okay, that's tight enough. Now I'm going to be connecting the positive cable of the inverter. These inverters typically have capacitors that will cause a spark whenever you touch the battery. So I've got a large resistor here that I'm going to touch in here to the battery, and then touch to the inverter cable, and that will slowly charge that capacitor and not cause a spark whenever this touches. So anyway, you just hold it for a couple of seconds with this little resistor, and then there is zero spark that occurs when you connect these two. So, and now I should be able to touch this as well and get everything hooked up here. I now have the three components connected together. The charge controller is connected to the battery is connected to the inverter. So we should be good to go now to test this out. Let me jump into the settings of the charge controller and make sure that my input is going to be good for this battery, and that will allow us to connect solar over here to the solar side, and we will begin charging this battery. I'm seeing here on the display that we have 13 volts on this 12.8 volt battery, so it actually is a little bit low, so we need to make sure that thing is fully charged up. I've just connected some solar power up to this charge controller. Let's see what we have here on the display. 13.5 volts is the battery voltage. If I click here, let's see, let's go to, it says 22.2 amps is what it's pushing to the battery. That seems high because I only have 9 amp on my panels. Let's see, so that says 15 watt hours so far. Battery temperature 68 degrees. Uh, 57.1 volts on the solar panels there. 13 volts. So yeah, I don't see an actual watt value, which would be nice to see, but it is charging. So we'll give this a moment, and hopefully it will charge up all the way. In the meantime, let's go ahead and turn on the inverter and see what we get here. So press that. All right, it says that we have 0 watts on the output. The AC is 109 volt. It's kind of low. And then we've got, looks like 13.8 volts on the battery. All right, let's plug something up to this and see what we get. I've got a heater here, which should give us some pretty good output. Go ahead and plug this up here. Okay, let's turn it on to the fan setting only and see what we get. All right, it is blowing out. Looks like 7 or 8 watts to have that fan running. Let's go ahead and turn this on to heat setting number 1, which I think is somewhere around 700 watts or something like that. Let's see what we get. Okay, I feel the heat coming out. Well, we got 493 watts. So very cool. All right, now one more setting here. Okay, there we go, 744 watts on that output. Seems to be doing quite well. The battery dropped down to 13 volts there. Let's see if that affected the input here. 28, so yeah, it went up some there. $55, $56, so yeah, about the same. All right, well, everything here seems to be working as it should. Output is good there. I would have liked to have seen the voltage here a little bit higher, maybe something around 120. It's good to see that all three components from Redodo are working out well here in this initial test. If you want to see me install all of these into a camper here in an upcoming video, then be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for that. I will have a link in the description to all three of these components, the inverter, charge controller, and battery, if you want to check those out. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.